Hey everyone, my name is Nathan. Really excited for you to be joining me in this session of going from good to great reporting. Just so that everyone is aware, this session is being recorded, as well as we are doing live moderation via chat. And towards the end, we will have a live Q&A. So we'll be able to answer all of your questions, as well as when all this is done, we are going to include a link in the chat where you can click on and give us your feedback. And would love if you took a little bit of time to do so. So to introduce myself, my name is Nathan Kaw. I'm an implementation consultant here at QuickBase. A little bit about me, I actually, prior to being an employee at QuickBase, I was first a customer. I started using QuickBase back in 2016. And I was using it at a small startup for a solar company here in Utah. And we started using QuickBase actually because we found out one of our competitors was using QuickBase. And so I thought, you know what, if they're using it and they've grown as big as they have with that system, I bet we can do the same. So I set out on a journey. I got a hold of QuickBase, I started my free trial, and honestly, the rest is history. Within 6 months of building within QuickBase, it actually caught the attention of a tech company here in Utah. And I made the transition into tech, and I brought QuickBase with me, as many of you have done between organizations. And it ended up being the main backbone of our infrastructure. We used it for several years, and we used it for HR, finance, sales, just about everything you can think of. And we grew it from just a few users to over 75 users. Everyone in the company had logins. It proved to be a tremendous value add. So with all that being said, I share that with you because I have a unique perspective. I have worn the customer hat and I now wear the employee hat. And I hope to be able to share a little bit about my experience with you so that you can take what I wish I would have known as a customer and implement it within your organization. So with that being said, here's the agenda for today. We are first going to cover report links. We are then going to dive into the topic of report drill downs, and we're going to then talk about formulas within reports and finish off with report tips and tricks, and then we'll have that Q&A that we talked about. So I'm going to be demonstrating and actually showing you within a QuickBase application called the Music Collection app. This is actually an application that I built, and it's a very simple application. There are only 3 tables. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, you know, my application has, you know, a lot more than 3 tables and it's a lot more complex. And I get that. The reason why I chose this application is because I want everyone to focus on the basics and the mechanics of what I'm about to do. Because whether your application is 1 table strong or it's 100 tables strong, you'll be able to take what I'm about to teach you and implement it within your own organization. So with that being said, I have 3 tables. I have artists, albums, and songs. Artists can have many albums, and albums can have many songs. Simple enough. So going into our very first agenda item is report links. I'm going to go ahead and navigate into my QuickBase application. So here we are. This is my home screen. This is my music collection dashboard. And you'll notice up at the top, I have my 3 tables: artists, albums, and songs. I have included, this is actually something that I did for fun. It's a link of all of the albums in order where you can actually click on an album and it'll take you into the album and you can see the album details. So these are all hyperlinks into the albums themselves, and it's just for easier navigation, and it's visually appealing, and I thought it kind of brings the dashboard to life, right? As we scroll down, before we hop into report links, I want to talk a little bit about the data that we're going to be working with. You'll see the labels of these charts might sound a little funny. You know, I've got danceability, I've got loudness, I've got liveness, and I've got energy. This is actually real data. I have not made this up. Every album and song that you're about to see is showing real data that was pulled from the Spotify database and is now being analyzed within this QuickBase account. And I want to talk a little bit about using real data when you build reports and charts. I have found that by bringing in real data, you are able to see the big picture and you're able to help cater your charts and reports to that data. And here's what I mean by that. Oftentimes people will work with data that they made up or that is perfect or was uploaded properly and has all the bells and whistles to it. And so with that being said, they're working in a little bit of a utopia. So when they create these charts and these graphs, they look perfect, right? And we all know that when you load in your real data, which is not always perfect, it's not always consistent. There might be values that are missing. It doesn't always look exactly how you want it to. So I always suggest to use real data as much as possible when you're trying to tell a story, because you want to tell the right story, right? So what you're about to see is real data, and I'm really excited to go over this with you. So let's go ahead and get started in report links. I'm going to go ahead and navigate up here to my albums table. And within my albums table, I have a list of all of my albums. We are going to work today inside of the Scorpion album by Drake. So you will notice that I have my album information here, the album date of release, time since the album was released, and days. So a lot of information here. And towards the bottom, we will see something that we are all familiar with. It is a report that shows all of the child records, which in this situation is all of the songs that are pertinent to the album for Drake in Scorpion. This is a report link. And if you were to ask me when I was a customer, what's a report link? Or, hey, Nate, can you create a report link? I honestly would have said, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, nor what you are trying to accomplish, right? So I want to talk a little bit about report links and what they are and actually how we can create them. So we are all familiar with this, and it's because when a relationship is created in QuickBase, it automatically creates the report link. So let's check it out. We're going to navigate to settings. We're going to go into our relationships. And you'll see right here, I'm going to go into albums can have many songs. And lo and behold, here is this field that's a type of report link, and it's called songs, which is actually the name of the child table, right? So QuickBase creates these automatically. And the beauty in that is that it's done for you. The thing that's a little bit difficult is that it doesn't necessarily teach you how it was built. And similarly to being a passenger while someone is driving a car, if you go from destination A to B, although you were in the car as you drove there, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you were to get behind the wheel, you would know exactly how to get there. And it's because this time you're the one making the turns. You're the one signaling, stopping, going, memorizing the street names. So in this session for today, I want to put you in the driver's seat so that you're able to understand how to get from point A to point B and do it yourself. So with that being said, let's go ahead and create a report link. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into my album Scorpion, and we are going to scroll down, and I want to create a visual representation within my form that is not a report. I want to create a gauge in here. Now, I remember the first time I saw someone's form and it had a gauge in it, I was blown away. I thought that you could only display reports in the table format, but no, you can actually display other visual representations such as gauges and bar graphs. And someone might ask, well, why would you want that? Well, sometimes displaying data in a different way helps the user understand it better and recognize it quicker. So here's a case in point. Let's say that I want to display the average danceability of this album, which danceability is how likely you are to dance to it. Sounds a little funny, right? But we want to know, hey, am I going to dance all night long to this, or am I just going to basically fall asleep during this song? So what we could easily do, and we all know that if you look in my child records, I have a column called danceability, and I can easily display the average of Drake's danceability at the bottom. But what if I wanted it in a gauge so that I could see If it's red, it's not very danceable. If it's yellow, it's pretty danceable. And if it's green, you're going to dance all night long, right? So I want to create that gauge, and I'm going to link it to my report. So prior to creating the report, let's go ahead and create the gauge. I want to show you how to do that. So we're going to navigate up into the songs table, which is the child table. We're going to click on reports and charts, and we're going to click new. And we're going to create a chart. And remember, I want this to be a gauge. So I'm going to name this danceability average. And I'm going to choose a gauge as my report type. And remember, I wanted to measure the danceability of all of the songs, but I don't want the sum, I want the average. So that people know, what I am measuring, I'm going to label this danceability average. And I want to put a gauge limit to it. And if you actually want to see what the measurement is for our danceability, if we go into songs, and I go into any song, we'll click on this one, I have a little description if you hover over danceability. It says at the very bottom, a value of 0 is least danceable and a value of 1 is most danceable. So now that we know how danceable this song is, we will go down, now that we know the range, and we're going to put our goal is 1. And we're going to go ahead and click save. And here is the danceability average of all of the songs within my application, which just happens to be 0.71. It's in the green, right? So now that we have successfully created a danceability average for all songs, how do we get this gauge into our albums table, specifically to show the danceability average for each individual album? Here's where the magic happens. We are going to go ahead and navigate into our albums and go down into our Scorpion album, pick any album, and we are going to create a new field right after add song, and we're going to call this danceability average. And this is going to be a field type report link. We're going to click done, and notice how instantly it says broken link, right? The first time I did this, I can't lie, I was a little dismayed because I did step 1 and it was broken. That doesn't give you much confidence that you're going to be able to figure this out, right? It actually only says that because it has yet to be configured. So let's go ahead and configure it. The easiest way is to go into the field properties. And we're going to look in this section called report link field options. Now, this is where it's going to ask you to match the values in this field from this table, AKA the albums table, to the values in this field, AKA the songs table. Now, I have found a really easy way to know exactly what to put in here, and it's actually already laid out for you. If I open up a new tab and we go into the relationship for albums and songs, notice this. It is already laid out for you, which is great. It is telling you that the key field is record ID in the parent table, and it is connecting to a reference field called related album. So we simply match this up. If we come back in here, we choose record ID for the parent table. And when we click select a target, it's going to ask us which app are we working in, and we are working in music collection. If I click OK, it's now going to show us a list of all of our tables with all of their associated fields. Notice that on the left-hand side of the colon is the table name, and on the right-hand side of the column or colon is the field name. So we need to find where it says in our relationship related album. So if you just do a control find, if you have a big list, right there towards the bottom, there is songs, child table, and related album, which is the field. So we're gonna go ahead and click OK. And we're gonna go back into that field, and notice record ID is now going to match up with related album. in your songs table. And when we click save, we scroll down and we see this blue 11. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, there's 11 songs. No, there's only 4 songs. So what in the world is 11? If you notice up in the top, 11 is the related album number. All it's doing is displaying the related album with a hyperlink to the songs. But that's not what we want. We want a gauge, right? So if we go back and we right click and we click edit the properties of this form element, you will notice that on the right hand side, right now it is just displaying a link to the related songs. I want to check this radio box, display the related songs directly on the form. And now I can choose my new danceability average report that I just created. Now watch this, click save. And there we go. There is my new danceability average in a gauge format. And we can see that Drake's album, Scorpion, is at 0.77, which is higher than the average of 0.71. One thing to note is that that was creating a report link from scratch. I also could have taken this existing report link. If I was to go into the form, I could have told it to also display that new report. I just simply wanted to illustrate how to create something from the beginning. So notice that if I come into my albums and I go into a different album, let's go into Beer Bongs and Bentleys by Post Malone, and we scroll down, notice that his danceability average is 0.67. But you see how much quicker I can read and consume this information than coming down here to the bottom and reading a danceability average that might not tell me the story exactly how I want it to. Report links are extremely valuable in that sense, that they can bring data to life and you can control what it looks like. The last thing about report links that I want to mention is that we just created a report link from a parent table to a child table, but report links also work from a grandparent record to a grandchild record. So for instance, I have artists and I could pull in the average danceability from songs all the way up into artists. And how you do that is you would take the record ID from your albums table, you would pass it to the child table, which is albums, and then you'd pass it from albums to the child record, to the child table, which is the songs. And so now that the record ID from artists is all the way down into songs, you can now build that report link and you can match those two fields. You do not have to always create a new relationship to have report links from a grandfather record table to a grandchild table. So report links, in summary, let's go back to the slides. Here are the key points and the key takeaways. Easily display child records on the parent table. That's done for us, and that's done when we create the relationship. And it's very, very helpful, which is why QuickBase does it by default. We also know that report links are not just table reports. They can be other report types, such as charts, and they're highly customizable. And last but not least, report links are a great way to help bring key data to the eyes of the end user in a way that tells a story. So I love report links now. I use them all the time, and they really help bring my forms to life because I bring data to life by creating new report links and visualizing it and consuming it in a little bit of a different way. So I now want to talk about report drill downs. If we go back into the application, I'm going to go ahead and go to my home table. And I'm going to scroll down, and here are all of those graphs that I created. And I think we've all been in that situation, at least I have. I have found myself in a meeting with other executives or other team members, and I'm showing them these awesome reports and charts that I just made. And lo and behold, someone says, hey, can you click into that pie chart? And you're like, oh, if I click into it, I don't know where it goes, right? So case in point, if I see the energy of all of these songs and someone asks me to look at the songs where they're energy level falls within 0.7 and 0.8, which are 6 songs that account for 21% of this pie chart. When I click into it, I'm taken into this default report, which is displaying the song ID, and that is irrelevant to what we're talking about. And it just isn't what I was hoping. And so I find myself in those situations backtracking and saying, actually, let's just go ahead and focus on the homepage and check out this. And you avoid it. And you avoid it because you either A, neglected the experience, or B, you just didn't know how to complete the experience. So here's where report drill downs come into play and why they are so valuable. A report drill down is the ability to go from 30,000 feet all the way down to 0. And this is how it does it. Similar to looking in a mirror, a report drill down can go on forever until it gets to the very record itself. Opposite of that is you can disable a drill down report if you want to. So for instance, if I come into here for my energy report, if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, notice how there's this section called drill down report, and I see drill down behavior. It defaults to the default report, which if you don't keep up with that default report, I'm here to tell you, it can get messy, and it can get messy fast. So I want to create a new drill down report that when I actually click on that pie chart, I want it to show me a horizontal bar graph that is sorted from high to low of all of the songs within that range so that I can easily see those 6 songs and see them in order. So let's go ahead and get that done. We are going to start off, before we change this behavior, I actually want to create the report that I'm going to link to this. Now, something really important to note is that drill downs have to be part of the same table as the report that you're drilling down from. So that pie chart right here was created in the songs table. So if I want to drill down, I have to create the drill down report in the songs table itself. So we're going to go up here to songs, and we're going to click on reports and charts, and we're going to create a new one. And we're going to name this energy drill down. Now, you don't have to name it drill down for it to be a drill down report. I am simply doing drill down so that we can easily identify which report I would like to choose. So if we scroll down, I'm going to go ahead and choose, remember I said I wanted a horizontal bar chart, and I wanted it to display on the y-axis the name. So I'm going to choose song name. I'm going to label that y-axis song name. And now for the x-axis, I am going to choose energy, and I am going to label this energy. And I actually, remember how I said you can, it's like looking in a mirror. You can go from 30,000 feet to 0 if you want, or you can disable it right from the beginning. So if I disable this drill down report, I can click none. Let me show you what happens. I'm gonna go ahead and click save. So here's my report. Not exactly what I was looking for, right? The songs are out of order. Looks like they're being ordered by their alphabetized by name, and I want them sorted by their energy. Additionally, if I wanted to see what album this song was pertaining to, I can't click on it. See how that drill down's disabled? So let's go ahead and clean this up, because I'm missing a few key things. One of them also being data labels. Like, I can't easily see without hovering over one of these lines what the energy is. I kind of have to look at that x-axis and guess, like, oh, is it between 0.6? Is it between 0.7, etc.? So check this out. Let's spruce this up just a little bit. Let's go back into it. And first and foremost, I am going to change the color to this turquoise green. You're going to laugh, but I had no idea you could change the color, I think, for honestly like over a year. So you can change the color. I am now going to sort by value, and I'm going to sort from high to low. That's going to organize my songs. And right here, I'm going to choose data labels always display, and I'm going to display the value. And additionally, I do want to be able to click into the song. So I am not going to disable the drill down. I'm going to have it drill down into my song home table. It's just a table that I built that has all of the songs in a way that I like to visualize them. So let's go ahead and click save and watch this come to life. So here are all of my songs from high to low by their energy. And we can see that the most energetic song is Nice for What. And additionally, I can click into it and I can see that that is from Drake's album. And I promise this session is not all about Drake. He just happens to have some very energetic and some very danceable songs. So if I go ahead and go back, notice how on the right-hand side, I have all of my data labels. See that 0.91, 0.86. I can easily see how energetic these songs are. So I now have my energy drill down report. I like how it looks. I like how it's organized. Let's set it as the drill down to the pie chart. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to home, going to scroll down, and I am going to edit this report. And down at the very bottom in that section that we went over, I can now set this to my energy drill down right here. And when I click save, watch what happens. Now, when you're sitting in that meeting and someone says, hey, can you click on that pie chart? You say, absolutely, check this out. Look at all of these songs that are between the range of 0.7 and 0.8. Believer is the most energetic within that group. By the way, did you know that the song Believer pertains to Imagine Dragons, right? Do you see how you're able to more easily tell a story because you have built the experience? You are helping guide the user through what you want them to see. So drill downs are more than just creating nice representations. They are helping the user get the information that they need and stopping them where they need to be stopped. Sometimes that pie chart sufficeth. Other times you want it to be able to drill down. And this is exactly how we can create these wonderful drill down reports. So one takeaway with this is I would challenge everyone to be intentional every time they create a report to either say, yes, this report drills down and here's what it goes to, or no, this doesn't drill down and I'm going to disable it. So going back to the slides, report drill downs, here are our key points. Report drill downs let users get more granular on the data. Like I said, you can go from 30,000 to 20,000 to 10,000 feet. Report drill downs help with user flow and data interpretability. So like we mentioned before, you can control the flow, you can present the data in a way that makes sense to the end user. And last but not least, you'll start to see a pattern. But report drill downs can connect reports to other reports in the same table in a way that helps tell a story. So I love report drill downs. They help bring the app to life. And we have some really cool things coming out in the next little bit that will help take drill downs to a whole new level that I'm really excited that you'll be able to learn about in the near future. So going on to our next topic, this is the last thing that we'll talk about before we talk about some tips and tricks, but report formulas. I will be the first to admit that I kind of have strayed away from report formulas simply because I didn't really understand what they did or why people used them. So I want to show you a real use case as to why someone might use a report formula. I'm going to go ahead and go to my artists table, and you're going to see my artist name, the bio, their website, their genre, their label, etc. You'll also notice this column over here on the right-hand side called favorite artists. And it is either checked or not checked. If I love them, it's checked. If I don't love them so much, it's not checked. So if I wanted to sort and group by favorite and not favorite, I could easily enough come in here, and we're going to do just that. And bear in mind, this is not the report formula quite yet. I'm setting the stage for it. So I'm going to come down here and I am going to sort and group by favorite artists, which is a checkbox, and I'm going to go ahead and click save. Notice it is now grouping my favorite artists and my not favorite artists. But if I'm not the one that created this and I'm viewing this and I read up here and it says no 7 artists and it says yes 6 artists in that header column, my first thought is no what and yes what. You can't really easily tell what it is grouping by. With this report in particular, I can see that yes, the yes section has a checkbox and the no section doesn't for favorite artists. But imagine if you had, 30, 40, 50 columns, someone's not going to be able to, extrapolate a pattern from that and be able to determine what it is that you're talking about. So here is where a report formula comes into play. And these are awesome. If I come into here, I'm going to go into the settings and customize this report. Notice that there is this section called report formulas and none have been added. But if I click add a report formula, watch what just happened. Notice how it says Formula 1, and no, I'm not talking about the race car, right? It just inserted Formula 1 as an available column to put over into my report. If I rename this to favorite, because I'm going to create a new column called favorite. I can choose the type, very similar to the options within creating a field. I'm going to go ahead and choose type formula text, and watch this. When I click the green check mark, it changes that Formula 1 to favorite, and it saves favorite and formula text. I can then, if I was to edit this, I still need to write my formula, right? That doesn't just do what I want it to. I need to write the formula. So I'm going to say if, and I'm going to go ahead and grab that favorite artists field, and I'm going to say if it is equal to true. Remember, it is a checkbox, so it's either true or false if it's checked or not checked. If it's true, I want to display the word favorite. If it's not true, meaning it's false, I want to display the word not favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and there is no sense for me to drag this over as a column because I already have a field that's telling me if it's favorite or not by a checkbox. So I'm actually going to put it as part of what it is sorting and grouping by. Notice that down at the bottom, I now can choose it at the very bottom. It's called favorite. And check this out. When I click save, it's now calculating whether it's true or false. And if it's true, it displays the word favorite. If it's false, it displays the word not favorite. So without having to figure out what is this sorting and grouping by, I can easily see favorite artists and not favorite artists. So here's a few things to know about this in particular when it comes to report formulas. They are not creating fields for you. So notice that if I go into this record and I try to add a field after this one, and I search for that field called favorite, doesn't exist. It's not in this list. And that is because those fields are actually only specific to the report in which they are created. So if I created another report, I wouldn't have that favorite option. I would have to recreate it. Now, the pro to this is sometimes users do not have permission to create formula fields. However, they still can perform calculations on reports by utilizing the report formulas to perform those operations. So that makes it really nice to be able to allow people to get the data that they need without giving them permission to building fields. Additionally, sometimes you just want to run a calculation on a report that doesn't necessarily merit a new field. So even if you have the ability to create a new field, that doesn't necessarily mean that you want to. And so this gives you the ability to do it at a report specific level, which is really cool. So going back to report formulas, in summary, report formulas allow for one-time inline report calculations that don't show up on forms. Report formulas are a great way to perform analysis on data, especially if you don't have access to build formula fields. And last but not least, going back to the theme of this, report formulas help bring data to life in a report by performing calculations to display data in a way that tells a story. Report formulas, really, the sky's the limit. You saw that you can add multiple report formulas. They can be different types. You can really bring your data to life in a report by performing those valuable calculations and doing it all within the report that you're already working within. I love them, and they have proven to be very, very valuable. So with that all being said, data always tells a story, but does it tell the right story? I have said this for years. I firmly believe that it is our responsibility to make sure that we are telling the right story. There was a little bit of a joke at our last company when the CEO would say, "Hey, Nate, how much revenue did we do for the month?" And I would say 200,000 plus or minus 10,000, right? I'd always give myself a little bit of a buffer just in case. But I learned something from those experiences, that it is my job to try to tell the right story. And whenever possible, I tried to make sure that not only was my data accurate, but that I was telling the right story through visualizations of the data, whether that was in a form, whether that was building out reports, whether that was building charts and graphs and doing report links or drill downs. I made a diligent effort to make sure that I was helping tell a story that allowed us to make good business decisions and be able to move the business forward. So with that being said, I want to end by talking about some tips and tricks with reports, and then we will go ahead and have our live Q&A. So let's go ahead, and before we end, let's hop back over and go to my home table. And one thing that I want to point out is this, that it is very important to almost be overly maniacal about the instructions or the way that you describe things to your end users. You can almost never do enough documentation or enough tutorials or enough descriptions. And what I mean by that is it's very easy for us to know exactly what's going on because we created it. But if I was a user who just logged in and I saw this loudness graph on the right-hand side and I saw all these negative values, my first reaction would be, how does a song have a negative value if it's loud, right? I wouldn't necessarily understand that. So I've put in a description that you can now hover over, and it would tell you, hey, did you actually know that loudness is measured in a range between -60 and 0 decibels? Now all of a sudden they're able to make the connection and understand why I see negative values. And now I know that actually -9.21 is the loudest song. And does anyone want to take a guess who? Drake. I'm telling you, he just happens to have it all right now. So going back to that, right? If we come into this loudness chart, here are a few things to note. This goes back to tips and tricks. Always do a description and always display it if at all possible right here. Descriptions work. Something that is so simple to you might not be as simple to someone else. And even if it is simple, it always requires a little bit of teaching and a little bit of mentorship for them to understand. So don't overlook that. You'll notice it in the next section for reports and charts panel. You can actually determine who sees it, everyone, and who doesn't see it. Maybe some users in specific roles, and maybe no one sees it at all. So you will actually be able to specify users in specific roles. So for instance, let's say that I am a sales manager and I have end of the month reporting that shows how many sales we had that month. But I don't necessarily want everyone, meaning the sales representatives, to see that. So here I can easily say users in this role, AKA sales manager, can see this report, but anyone else, they can't. This is a great way to show and hide relevant information via reports to the users, depending on their roles. So don't overlook this section. It's also one that I would always go over just to make sure that you are creating reports for people who actually need to see it. Going down, if you didn't know you can change the color, you can change the color. But always label your X and Y axes. That is something that I feel like is very important. Talking a little bit right here, let's talk about series. It's at the top of my screen. The best way for me to explain series, just because I'll be honest, before I would choose a series and I would always click save just to see what's this going to look like. And sometimes it looks great and other times I'm like, oh, no series. No, not going to do that. The best way to explain a series is imagine if you have a horizontal bar chart that shows the revenue for January, February, and March. And let's say that for January, it's 100,000. For February, it's 200,000. And for March, it's 300,000. We all want to be part of that company, right? Look at that growth. Let's say that of that 100,000 in January, you want to be able to segment it to see where did that 100,000 come from. And let's say that lead source is what tells you that, because it's either outbound, cold calling, social media, paid ads on Google, etc. If you choose the series and you choose lead source, it'll actually take that same bar and it'll break it up and segment it by the source so that you could see, oh, we had 30,000 allocated from here and 10,000 from outbound calls and X thousand from here. What it really does is it takes your 30,000 foot view and without drilling down, it helps paint a little bit more of a granular picture so that you're able to understand what's going on and attribute those numbers to different categories or to different places. So series can be very, very helpful in a lot of different aspects. And I would encourage everyone to play around with them and to understand how they work, because it can help bring your data to life. We already talked about sorting and grouping. Goals are also important if you want to help try to set expectations with how many sales you should have this month or how many calls you should make in a day. Goals can be very helpful in that sense. We talked about data labels. I always check this. Very rarely do I ever not check this because I love seeing the data labels. We talked about report formulas, and now I want to talk about this section down here for filtering. Filtering is extremely important. We had a table at my last company that had almost 1 million records in it. It was all of the calls we were making. And QuickBase called me and they said, hey, did you know that your table is this report's taking about 15 seconds to load? And I said, whoa, no, I didn't. They're like, might we suggest running a filter on those calls to show maybe the last 60 days? And I thought, oh, that's great, because A, that's a lot more effective for the sales reps because they don't care about calls from 2 years ago. And B, that's a lot more efficient because it's going to decrease the load time. And we did it and it was amazing. And I did it by simply filtering out songs that were older than 60 days. Excuse me, not songs. I'm thinking about this. I filtered out calls that were older than 60 days. In this app, if I wanted to filter out songs, I could say, show me everything where danceability is greater than the value of 0.2, but I only want to see where danceability is less than the value of, let's say, 0.9. It helps narrow the focus and narrow the search efforts and get the data that you need. Filters are extremely important, and I would always suggest to use them. Last but not least, I want to talk about grouping, being able to sort and group. And you do that on reports that look like this, the tables. And so if I customize this report and I scroll down to the very bottom, you'll notice that I have a new section called sorting and grouping. This is, we went over this just a little bit, but this is very, very helpful to group your data, to sort your data. You can add multiple groups, you can add multiple sorting, and you can do it on a variety of different fields. So this also helps organize the data in such a way that you are able to see exactly what you want, which, by the way, a little plug for our new table reports. You are going to love them. They include filters on almost all of the fields, and they have some really new capabilities that are about to come out with grouping and sorting that'll just take these to the next level, and you're going to love it. So with that being said, all data tells a story, but does it tell the right story? And so I want to go ahead and end and let everyone know that reporting is something that you can commit to today, from going from good to great. And I know that you'll be able to do that. And I hope some of these things that I illustrated in this session will be able to help you do so. So thanks for joining me, and looking forward to answering some live questions. We'll go from there. Thanks.